Welcome to Chatbox with Sam. Today's guest is Larry Hankin. Larry Hankin, as you know, is an actor, writer and producer. He's been on many, countless shows, films, and he's a writer of quite a few of them too. And we all know him from Friends with the broom. But setting aside from that, he's done many things, and he's on Facebook and IMDb if you go and check that out. Anyway, welcome, Larry. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. It turns out. I've been, very careful, wearing a mask outside, staying away from Homo sapiens and bats. I stay away from bats too. Uh,
Right.
so I think I've got that covered. But I'm okay. Thank you for asking.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And I have a few questions, and in with the questions, I will integrate your career, your large, vast career, which is amazing. I have
Again,
huge respect for you. If you were to encourage the younger generation, what would be the main focus?
well, I would start to stop listening to your parents. It's my first. I, just you're in charge, and my generation kind of screwed up. So you're gonna have to. We didn't leave you a good legacy, so that's why I say that. My generation didn't do a good job with planet Earth at all. So the younger generation, you're gonna have to deal with that. I'm sorry to say, you're gonna have to deal with that. So that's a major thing. That's a major problem that you're gonna have to deal with. I think you can deal with it, but it's gonna be hairy. You know, we uh, yeah, that's really the only thing. Other than that, do you're right, kids. You're right. You know what's happening. You're doing the right thing, so you don't need any advice from me. That's the second thing. You don't need any advice from me. So
So,
that's not it. I think I
yeah,
covered it all.
with the climate change and things, yes, the planet needs a lot of healing. I can see where you're coming from with that. So, thank you for answering that, Larry.
Tell you the honest truth.
Yeah,
Kids,
yes, absolutely. They have got a lot of work, and unfortunately, they are going to be affected by the the ignorance of how
my
we've.
generation, my
Hmm.
generation. Not
Yeah,
maybe not so well, and yours too, but
yeah.
anybody, the old saying, don't trust anybody over 30. I think that was the old saying in the 60s, don't trust anybody over 30. Well, they were right, and you shouldn't have because we didn't do a good job. That's why they said that back in the 60s. See, that's when I grew up back in the 60s. And so all the stuff that we were saying back in the 60s has pretty much either come true or we didn't do a good job. We hippies. We didn't finish the job. We started it, but it's going to be up to you kids to finish the job, if there's a way to finish it.
Yeah. What inspired you into this career?
It
Because
inspired me. Well, I didn't want to do anything, and this seemed to be the easiest thing next to not doing nothing or anything, not doing anything. That's I never had. Until late in life, I never had any dreams or aspirations. I mean,
mm,
I came from a very sheltered, protective, not in a good sense,
hmm,
family, dysfunctional. So I didn't have any, I just lived in the now pretty much.
right.
That's not a good thing. I didn't look into the future. So I went to college because my parents wanted me to go to college. So I went to college. I had nothing else to do. I didn't, they said, the college of your choice. So, and then they gave me the choices.
Yes.
Uh, so I went to college. I fulfilled my obligation to my parents, and then one of my best friends in college was Carl Gottlieb, who wrote all the Jaws movies,
Right.
most of them. and a lot of other movies too. But
Yes.
I mean, when we were in college, he just wanted to be a writer. We didn't know about Jaws or anything else. So I was an industrial designer. That's what I did in school, industrial design, which is where the art comes from,
Yes.
my art. So he asked me where I was going to go. We were going to graduate at the same time. So he asked me, where are you going? And I said, well, not to Detroit because they wanted me to design cars.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go. So I asked him where he was going. He said he was going to Greenwich Village. He was going to be a writer. And I said, that sounds pretty good. Why don't we become roommates? Let's just go there. So that's what I did. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I really didn't. Had no idea. We were roommates. I was cleaning a bar between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. for a couple of months, trying to just pay the rent. That was all. Just trying to figure out. And he was reviewing movies and stuff. He was,
Yes.
he had a dream. So I was working from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. cleaning up the bars after last call. But my evenings were free. Well, my whole day was free except to sleep a little. But so my evening was free. So I'd hang out in the coffee houses in Greenwich Village. The Greenwich Village, and it was just about a 6-block area. So all the coffee houses were there. You could just go from coffee house to coffee house. You didn't have to get a bus or anything. You could just walk from coffee house to coffee. So I would watch them and I'd say, hey, I was a funny guy in high school. I can do that. The open mic nights.
Yes.
You get 3 minutes to 5 minutes. You get up there, you do your thing. And to me, nobody was funny, or maybe they were kind of funny. Anybody, you just sign up and you get up on the stage. But the great thing about open mic nights was that nobody booed or hissed or left. If you weren't funny, the audience was just quiet because they weren't there to hear you. They were here to hear their friend, for his 5 minutes or 3 minutes. So they weren't going to be rude and boo you because then you could boo their friend. So everybody was just very nice.
Yes.
And that was great for a learning comedian.
Yes.
Because, you could try anything and nobody said anything. And if it worked, they laughed. So I thought, hey, this is cool. And so I did that for a little while. And I guess I had a proclivity for it because my learning curve went like that. And within about 3 or 4 months, I quit the bar gig and I was opening for Woody Allen. So,
awesome.
So I said, okay, I can do this. So let's do this.
And you were in Janet Jackson's music video, and you went on the George Carlin. I mean, he was an icon, really, wasn't he? Very political.
The Lobster.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the show, but The Lobster. I think he was dressed in a lobster costume, and I was dressed in some other. Either he was dressed in a lobster costume or I was dressed in a lobster costume, but it was so bizarre and far out. I mean, you're an actor in a TV sitcom, and you either are a lobster or you're talking to a talking lobster. It wasn't George Carlin. So it was kind of bizarre, but that's how I related to show business. It wasn't show business. It was just a weird gig. And each gig was different. So, but I mean, that was a long way from stand-up comedy. I had to go through Second City and the Committee and a lot of improv. So I did a lot of things. In other words, I was a performer. I'm writing a book now about what we're talking about.
You are writing a book? And when will that be published, do you think?
Well, I don't know. Right now, as we speak, as soon as I get off the air, I'm going to start sending query letters. That's a whole other job. Next, I guess at the end of this year or maybe the beginning of next year, it'll be out, published. It's called That Guy.
That Guy, yes.
Then whenever they see me, hey, you're that guy.
It's true. It's true.
They go, yeah. Hey, this is that guy, man. No, but nobody knows my name. But they just,
Larry Hankin, Larry Hankin.
well, yeah, yeah. But if I said if the book was named Larry Hankin, nobody would buy it. But maybe if that guy, maybe they would. Oh yeah, it's that guy. Yeah, it's that guy. So I mean, that's kind of how I got into show business. I just fell into it because I was a funny guy, and
Yeah,
then I started to tour, and I did the improv thing, and because I got into
right.
critical thinking humor. Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor. I was doing all that stuff. Bill Burr now is kind of doing that stuff, but now everybody's doing it. Now, I mean, I watch HBO, the specials, the HBO comedy specials where, you stand up for an hour.
Yes.
So I watch those a lot because I really am a stand-up comedian. I mean, I was
That's
born
awesome.
to it. I think I just discovered it. And I see what they're doing. I'm looking at, looking for material, looking what people are laughing at, what's going on. And it's all critical thinking, but it's very shallow. It's trying to be cool and hip. I mean, Lenny was just, I mean, he's my, Lenny Bruce is my Bob Dylan. Let me put it that way.
Really?
So, but he was there. I
Yeah.
never, in other words, he was now. When he was doing it, he wasn't making up stuff and he wasn't reaching. He was just
It's
telling
like,
his day in such a modern, unique, street level way. I mean, he was a white dude doing black material
yeah.
almost in a white nightclub, in a jazz nightclub. And I thought that was really cool, and nobody else was doing that. So I started to do that. And then I would see George Carlin and Richie Pryor, and that was the beginnings of it. And then cops started pulling me off the stage, and people throwing beer bottles at me and wanting to beat me up. And I'm going, whoa, what is this?
Oh,
I'm
no.
just trying to be funny, people. I don't mean any harm. And no, you can't talk about religion or sex or drugs or anything else you want to
Politics.
talk about. I mean, it was just stupid. So I complained to my manager. It was Woody's manager. I'd say, hey, I can't do this. And he'd be, what? Why can't you got Woody doing television? Why aren't you booking me on? He says, Woody has television material, which
Right.
television material is, to me, was like Norman Rockwell stuff. I mean, it was just vapid. It was not funny. I mean, let's put it that way. It's just not funny,
Mhm.
period. And I wanted to do funny stuff. And it seems funny stuff needed intelligence for some reason. Even the stupid stuff. You had to be a little intelligent to get the stupid stuff. So, I mean, so that's why I became finally an actor. I said, well, the money's better.
The money's
I mean,
better.
it wasn't, again, it wasn't show business to me. It was just a paycheck. I have to pay the rent. And being funny seemed,
It's powerful. Laughter is powerful.
well, it just seemed like an easier way to do it. I really had no, dreams or passions, or desire. There you
Right.
go. There's the word. Thank you, Bob. Desire. I had no desires for anything. I had desires to hang, like,
Hang out.
go to the corner and, hang out or stay up late. That was my desire. Until finally, when I started to write my film shorts, when I got enough money acting to do what I wanted. Well, I had money, and then once you get money, you got to do something with it.
Right.
That was, again, it wasn't desire. It was, wow, being an actor was like more pay than being a stand-up comedian. And you didn't have to write anything. People wrote parts for you to do. So show business was like a gift to me.
Yeah.
A lazy.
Well, you get paid and then you get the residuals too when you're in episodes.
And the residuals, yeah. Well, that
Yes.
came later.
Later.
But Yeah, so that's how I became an actor and how. But then when I started to do my film shorts, then the desire. So hey, man, I like this. This is cool.
The
And
writing.
so writing, and but you had to write it, and I was
Yeah.
writing for myself, and then you had to get a crew, your friends. Hey, you want? Can you work a camera? You know, can you direct? I'll direct, whatever. But see, that's and acting in Hollywood is not for the faint of heart.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of suits around, people telling you what to wear and where to go, and
Right.
don't bump into the other actors, don't bump into the lights or the camera. It's a lot of don'ts in acting.
It's like
So,
that. It's like that in an accounting job too.
I mean, what people want to hear is the glamour.
Yes.
You're acting with Bryan Cranston, and you were being directed by John Huston. Well, that's the perks if you're around long enough and you got a good agent and he books you in the right place, but it's not up to you at all unless you
Right.
have a desire. If you don't have a desire, you're fucked. Forget
Right.
it.
Well, I think it's a very hard industry. For
Can I
you
curse?
work very
Am I
hard.
allowed to use that
That's
word?
okay. Yes, you can. It's First Amendment
Well,
only here.
yeah. I mean, but that's anything. If you really, I never wanted to be I had no desire to be a success. I just wanted to be really good at whatever I did,
Well, that's
and
better, don't
and
you think? That's
that's not
better.
the American way. That's not capitalism, folks.
Yeah, but yeah, but
You
that's
gotta want to be rich.
right. Yes, you don't want to be rich. You just want to be
Well,
happy.
no, you have to. The desire has to be rich. If your desire is money, which is the worst desire you could ever
Ever
have,
have? Yeah.
it's an endless loop of nada. So because all you can get is more money, and money is nothing. It's paper with
Yeah.
ink on it.
Right.
But if you have a desire to do something, like be good at what you like,
Right.
that's cool. But that you have to get people to want to pay for that. So
Yeah.
that's another job. I mean, it's like I was homeless for about a year.
Oh.
I lived in my car. No, it was great. It was great. It was nobody says that, but it was great. I mean, you find out who you are and what you are and what you want and what you don't want. I mean, it's really cut to the bone, man. Uh,
Right.
I mean, and if you, so I needed to do that. I'm very glad that I did it. I mean, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But I thought, yeah, I can handle this. I mean, it was a challenge. It was my first
Right.
challenge. It was very
What
confrontational.
difference did it make for you at the end of
Well,
that
I found out
year?
what's important.
Right.
I mean, my guitar was important. My battery to my car was important. I lived in my car and I played my guitar. And somebody stole my guitar and my battery. I mean, it's getting down to the bone, man. What else do you want? I mean, that's not like, it's just like a child.
Yeah.
It's like your child. They took your
Mm.
child away.
It's
What do
like
you,
taking
it's
food
my
away, isn't
child.
it?
All of a sudden you learn ownership. You
Mm.
learn about yourself. Hey, man, you can't take this.
Right.
But being homeless is homeless starts to take you. It starts to infringe on you because you don't own anything. Everything is yours while you have it. But things get stolen or it gets left,
Yes.
or, you
What a
know,
shame.
and then when you leave, like to go find food, like to either panhandle or to go to the food place where they serve homeless people,
Right.
or you go to a friend's house, but you have to leave where you live, my car, or your tent. Once you leave, what's going to happen to your tent or your car or your battery while you're not there? So you got to get somebody to watch your stuff, or you
Right.
got to worry about your stuff.
What a
And
shame.
that that becomes a very big, large part of your life. It becomes your second job. Your first job is to find a safe place to sleep tonight. That's your first job. Find a safe place to sleep tonight. And your second job is get through today. If you can do those two things, you're homeless. If you don't have a chair, a table, a wall, or a bathroom,
Yeah, so the bathroom would be a big thing, yes.
you don't have a bathroom. So you start to see what's important, and then you go from there. And then finally, when you see what's very important, that you need these things, that's when you stop being homeless, when you start to, you know. But a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, I live in Marina Del Rey. Well, I live in Santa Monica, right near the beach.
Beautiful.
Well, all there is tents all over this place.
Yeah.
There's homeless people all over. I mean, if you walk along the bike path or you walk along the walking path,
Yeah.
there's just tents all along where the sidewalk ends and the beach starts, or the boardwalk ends and the beach starts.
Yeah.
That's where all the tents are.
They're in Venice Beach too. I was just there walking along Santa Monica and Venice Beach, and there was the homeless.
And then
yeah, there's a lot of homeless
nobody
people.
bothers you until the cops come, and then they start cleaning up. And then, so that year of me being homeless, and I wrote about that extensively.
When was that, Larry?
When?
Yes.
Or where?
When?
That was in wow, that was in 1973.
Okay.
For a year. I lived in my car in San Francisco.
Yes.
And I just drove around. First of all, you have to find a place to park overnight. There's a lot of places you
And it
can't.
gets cold in San Francisco. I live 3 hours away from San Fran, and it gets cold there over night time.
Oh boy, I nearly killed myself. I lit a hibachi inside my car. That's carbon dioxide.
Right.
I mean, Jesus. I woke up. I woke up. Thank God I woke up. I
Yes.
woke up with the weirdest, wildest, cruelest headache ever. And I had to get out of the car. It was freezing outside, but
Yeah.
the hibachi was in the car and all this carbon dioxide. I didn't know. I didn't realize it. I didn't know about carbon dioxide. I was stupid. So I got out of the car just to get rid of the headache, not because of the carbon dioxide. I didn't realize that I nearly almost died. I was out of the car, freezing my ass off. I didn't want to go back in the car because I made the connection that it was the headache was in the car.
Right.
Maybe the heat. I thought maybe the heat. And then, so I poured out the coals because I thought it was the heat. Poured out the coals. I got back in the car and I froze. I had a blanket, but I froze. The next day, I mentioned that to a friend, and he said, "You lit charcoal briquettes inside your car with the windows closed?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That's carbon dioxide. You were going to kill yourself, Larry." I go, "Oh, that's the headache."
Oh dear. I don't mean to laugh.
Oh, okay.
Thank God you're okay.
Yeah, realization. Yeah, so it's a learning process. Life is a learning.
Yes, it certainly is. And you learnt from that and didn't do it again.
Yeah, so like all along for the year as a homeless, there was every day I learned something new. So I guess maybe I was homeless because I had a lot to learn. I was a very naive kid. I mean, seriously. I mean, there's a perfect example of Larry could have died in the car because he was stupid. I mean, literally, I could have died in it.
Yes.
I mean,
because you just didn't know any better. I wouldn't say stupid.
Well,
and you did say you had a sheltered childhood, so maybe you were just exploring.
Well, that's a mom talking now.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Mom.
You're welcome.
But no, it's stupidity.
Eat your vegetables.
It's street. It's street. But thank you. No, I've learned enough to. But still, every day, there's still. When I go onto a set, when I was working as an actor, there was one rule I did have. It was a little rule. I mean, I didn't, think about it or have it written down. But I'm going to learn my lines. I'm going to do the best job I can. But I want to learn something. I mean, it just, it was my little way of going, this money isn't good enough for what I'm giving you. No matter what the pay was, I'm worth more than that. So I have to learn something here to make it even. So that was kind of what I was doing. So I would either watch The Star, I would generally, luckily, most of my parts were with one of the leads in whatever I was in.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I was going to mention you were in Malcolm in the Middle, you were...
Bryan Cranston.
Right, and then you were on Pretty Woman, Home Alone. I mean, all these...
So all my scenes were with the leads.
Yes.
So that's what I learned. In other words, okay.
Breaking Bad even, and that's huge.
Say that? What?
Breaking Bad. You were in Breaking Bad,
man.
That's huge.
Vince Gilligan, Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, the crew. Just the crew on Breaking Bad was amazing.
Right.
The guys behind the camera, the cinematographer. Yeah, Vince Gilligan. What? Yeah. Great writer. So yeah, but I would, and they, a lot of the times, either the star, the lead, or the director, mainly directors were very key on that. And they would see that I wanted to learn. And they would allow me to do things or be places where they wouldn't allow other actors. They would say, hey, Larry, come here,
Yeah.
I would always stand next to the camera, or I would follow the director around like a little puppy. Or I'd ask him questions all the time, and why are you doing this? What's the framing? I thought, why don't you put the camera over there?
Yeah.
I would always be asking, but and I wasn't obtrusive. I didn't, because they were trying to do their work too, So, but they always welcomed me. Hey, Larry, come here, you want to see this? You want to look in the camera? They would invite me. Hey, you want to take a look? Wow, why are you doing that? Well, then they would put me on because I was so naive. Well, why are you doing this? I don't know. I think I'll get fired. They would always say something like that, something to like
make them laugh.
Yeah. Jerry Lewis and the warden of Escape from Alcatraz, Patrick McGowan. Well, Patrick McGowan. Now, Clint. See, they're two opposites. Clint welcomed me. He saw that I just hung around him. I mean, he was like at the time, probably one of the most famous actors in the world. Mm-hmm. So I would just hang around him, ask him a lot of questions. He would say, "Hey, Larry, come over here, blah, blah, blah. What do you want? But Patrick McGowan didn't want to know anybody or talk to anybody. He never showed up on the set unless it was his time to act. He would stay in his dressing room, never spoke to him. I think I asked him one question and it was one word answer. But Clint would, he'd hang with the extras. Here's a little known fact about Clint Eastwood. I've never seen this revealed. This is a trivia fact. He is this thing, Clint Eastwood. You could give him a topic and he would either make it up or quote verbatim a Lear's limerick. I've never, in the 3 months I was on that movie, he was never stumped. He would hang out with the extras, the prisoner extras, and he would eat lunch with them, and they would ask him questions and stuff. And mostly because they saw he was good at Lear's limericks, every lunchtime they would test him, and I never saw him stumped in the 3 months. He just every time, do one about monkeys, or do one about a king, or do one about prunes, and he'd go, there once was a blah, 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 blah. There once was a man from St. Ives who had 7 wives. He would just do them. I mean, it was just amazing.
Oh, gosh, I didn't know that. Yes, that is a fun fact about Clint Eastwood.
Wow. A ridiculous fact. I wonder if he can still do that. That was years ago. But anyway.
He probably can.
So I always try to learn something on the set. Yeah, that was my little takeaway, So,
Yes. It is good to. It is good to. I think we gain an experience, different experiences in different things that we do. I think if you pull something from every
well,
workplace
just be
or every
curious.
person you meet, yeah, you pull something new. Or
Oh, there you go. Let me add that one thing to the question you asked me in the beginning about, some advice for kids. Be
yes,
curious. Be curious.
okay.
Don't let anybody stop your curiosity. Okay, that's it. Go
So,
on to the next.
so is there any role that you played where you've seen your own personality within that role?
Old Joe, I guess. I did. I was doing my Uncle Murray. That was my Uncle Murray. He was he installed oil burners with my grandfather. That was their business. They were oil burner installers. This is back in the day. I mean, this is in the 40s and 50s, when they were younger and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they had their own business, and they installed oil burners. So, but he always came home because he babysat for me a lot as a young man, and then I used to stay at his house with his wife and two kids when my parents would go for like a weekend, alone, get away from me and my sister. So I'd stay with them, and he would always come home in his coveralls, just like old Joe, and he would be all covered with grease from installing or taking out or replacing oil burners and stuff like that. And that was his attitude. It was basically, I guess, Mr. Heckles was my grandfather and old Joe was my Uncle Murray. I just,
Oh,
I'm not an actor so much as I'm a parrot. I'm a mimicker. I'm a mocker.
ah,
So I was just doing, what I do is I pick somebody and I
right.
do them in the character. Mr. Heckles.
Yes, with the broom. I was
Yeah.
actually going to bring the broom up and do this.
I don't know. I mean, it was written, I auditioned, but, it just far exceeded anything else I've ever done. I don't get it. I mean, maybe it's because I did 5 shows. Maybe just the input to people's eyes is just 5 and it becomes famous. But
Yeah.
I get more requests for Mr. Heckles than I do any other thing I've ever done. And
I
I
know.
still don't understand why. I mean, sometimes I'll watch the show just to see Mr. Heckles. And what is it? People, I can't figure it out.
Because it was so funny, and I think laughter is very powerful. Laughter is very, very powerful, and it's so true. There's always one neighbour that's like, keep the
Oh, well,
noise
yeah.
down with young people, and I think people
Oh,
relate
maybe
to it.
that's it. Because
Yes.
my grandfather was like that. He was a manager of an apartment house in Brooklyn, in New York. Or no, was it Brooklyn? I think it was Brooklyn. Yeah. And my mother we lived in Far Rockaway, which was miles away. But my mother would always get calls about her father, my grandfather. He's not taking out the garbage. Get over here. He was always complaining about my grandfather. So maybe that's the hook to Mr. Heckles. It's
and
the,
and I
the
and I'm
grand-
go. It is, but everyone. It's a very powerful. It's very powerful. It's very memorable.
so Mr.
Got you.
Heckles was really my grandfather.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I guess so. Any of the other parts that I did,
Yes.
somehow I would be doing a relative or somebody I know or part of me. I mean, So acting to me is that because I'm not an actor. I really am not. I can act, as
Yeah.
anybody can act. Anybody can. If you just take, 1 or 2 lessons, just relax. That's the main thing. Just relax.
We're a writer and screenwriter and director. Would you like doing
Well,
that?
that I prefer because you can do it in your own home, and it doesn't. Nobody can tell you not to type out something, and nobody can tell you how much something you're typing costs.
Mm-hmm.
The car crashed into the airplane. That costs nothing.
Right.
Filming that costs $1 million. A car to crash into an airplane.
Yes.
So you gotta make the adjustment. You
Yes.
know, you're alone in your room typing away, and then you send it in to somebody, or you want to do it yourself. You know, like I'm gonna make my own little film
Film.
short. No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. He walks into a diner and it's being held up.
Yeah.
What diner? Where? How much is that going to cost? Who's going to give you a diner to film something in, Larry? You know, all of a sudden, reality is not writing at all.
Right.
You know,
It's
I
hard
mean, you're
industry.
making movies, but novels, okay. Like this biography that I'm writing. It's not a biography; it's a memoir. Somebody told me that it was a memoir. That there's a difference. I still don't know the difference.
A memoir is a little bit longer. Memorable parts of your
Yeah,
of
yeah.
your
So
life.
that's what my book is. Yeah, that. It's a memoir. That I can just sit and write, and nobody tells me what to say or do. You know, I just sit and type whatever I want, and you like it or not. This is it. And I wrote another book that's out already. It's called The Loopholes Dossier. Actually, it's really good. I just don't like the cover, and
Oh,
so I
really?
don't talk about it because of the cover. But the cover has nothing to do with what's inside the book. It's a satire. It's a satire of fables, 7 fables and 2 biographies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, the 2 memoirs. It's a book of 7 satirical fables and 2 satirical memoirs. I got to remember that. I've
Yes.
always saying they're biographies. No, they're just one is because of my homeless year.
Yes.
I get a memoir, a satirical memoir, because you see life in a whole different point of view. Also, that's the other plus of being homeless,
Yeah.
because you have nothing. Everything else is up for attack.
Right.
You have somebody explained it to me. You have the moral high ground. That's why Chaplin was funny. He was homeless. He could attack anybody, or he could steal. And I've seen the movies, you know, and it's very funny. He can steal food from babies, and it would be funny because he had the moral ground. The baby was fat, full, and rich, and he was homeless and hungry.
Right.
So he would steal ice cream from a little baby. You know, the baby was, you know, facing that way on a guy's shoulder,
Yeah.
and obviously a rich man.
Yes.
And the baby had an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
And Chaplin was standing in line behind the baby. So Chaplin did 2 things. The first
amazing.
thing in his childhood was pretty much what his movie life was.
Mm-hmm.
He came from poverty, and
Yeah.
So he took the hot dog. I don't know. Let's say it was a hot dog. The baby had a hot dog for some reason. I guess because he needed it to be a hot dog. I don't know what anybody would give a baby a hot dog. But anyway, the baby had a hot dog. So what he did was he took the hot dog out of the bun, broke it in half, ate the first half, and then gave it to a dog, the other half.
Dog.
Then tapped the guy on the shoulder and pointed to the dog and the baby crying.
He was amazing.
Not me. I didn't eat the hot dog. The dog. So, I mean, but in other words, you have the moral high ground. Chaplin had the moral high ground there, whether or not, however he did. But that was what it taught you, is you have the moral high ground. So you can attack anything. And that was another thing I learned about satire. Being homeless is, wow, man, this is a great place. And then I really understood what Chaplin was about.
Right.
I was once walking. It's so out of. I was once walking down the middle of a street in the Seal of Africa. True story. This is a true story. I was walking down the street in the Seal of Africa. It's an Arab town. I mean, this is in the 60s, and we see it was like 9-10 o'clock at night, and everything shuts down. I mean, there's not much electricity in the 60s in the Seal of Africa. So we're walking down the middle of the street because we didn't want to get attacked, basically, me and a friend. So we
Right.
walked down the middle of the street, and down at the end of the street, we saw a light coming out of a little store. So we said, "Oh, let's go down there." And we heard laughter coming out of that store. What the heck are Arabs laughing at? So because we were in an improv group, the committee, and we're just touring in Europe, and we like, let's go to Asila. So we walk down the middle of the street, we go into this, and it was a coffee house, but an Arab African coffee house. It's just a tiled room serving coffee with chairs and tables. That was it, and a coffee urn at the end. And there's a movie screen in this coffee house, and there's Arabs. I mean, dressed with, and the camels are parked in the back. I mean, seriously, it's that native. And there's a little 16 or an 8 mil or 16 millimeter movie camera in the middle of the room, and they projecting up on the wall. And what they're laughing at is a Chaplin movie, Charlie Chaplin movie, these Bedouins. Yeah. And they're laughing. And me and my friend, Howard Hessman he's an actor. Okay. And we're sitting there. Well, we're standing there. Everybody looked around. Then they were focused on Chaplin, but they were laughing at things that we didn't get. I mean, we didn't know what they were laughing at. I mean, we know Chaplin is funny, and there would be the parts that are funny, and we'd laugh, and they'd laugh. But then they'd laugh at other things that, why did they laugh at that? And when we left, finally, we've talked about it for a long time because we're comedians.
Yeah.
And we want to know, what was the laugh? What was the laugh? We finally figured it out. They were laughing at his poverty, that he was doing things that poor people do that we didn't recognize. Mm. And they were just laughing at the familiarity. You know how you laugh at things that are familiar?
Yeah. Yes.
Like a child would do something. Oh, yes. That's so, cute. Yeah. And that's what they were laughing at. So again, you see things differently. And that's what these Bedouins had.
I think he was a very simple person. He had a natural simplicity about him, but also there was a serious side. If you watch the speech he did where he dresses up like Hitler, that is one of the most powerful speeches I've ever heard.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, but see,
about humanity.
I know that speech. I mean, I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a big yawn. Now, it's a powerful speech, but it was in the wrong place, Charlie. I mean, you liked it, so it's not in the wrong place. But to Larry, it was in the wrong place. You know how long that speech is? Now, let me say this to give you your props. That speech was written in 1937 or 38, 39, maybe 40, 41. It was during the war.
Yeah.
That probably rang true then.
Yeah.
Because it was in the middle of a war. There was a war going on when he gave that speech. So it probably meant something really important then. So now when I watch it, it's So I'm a little too satiric for my own good.
Yeah. But don't you think it always rings true because we're always in conflict in the world?
Well, yeah, but then you're into Lenny Bruce or Richie Pryor or now it would be who's the English guy? It's called he has a sitcom on HBO right now about how his wife died and he's trying to make the best of it. Ricky Gervais, right?
Yes, he's awesome.
Well, anyway, there's a comedian now who has the mentality that you're talking about war and the bad stuff. the bad stuff that are going on, that human beings are doing to one another. That would be the equal. He could do, in other words, he would be the chaplain of his time now.
Okay.
So that speech, he would say it in a way that's modern. Chaplin's movie that you're talking about was a black comedy, only we didn't have that word then. Black comedy is exactly what I'm talking about. That speech now is a bore, but Ricky Gervais would have rewritten it, and it would be right on. He is a relative of that comedy.
Oh, they had him up at the Oscars, and he was very raw but funny.
Yeah. I mean, but Ricky Gervais is the man of the hour now, to me. Yeah. And he doesn't care. No. He loves what he does. And so did Lenny, and so did Chaplin. And they were all really very smart. And they were all geniuses. All of them, those three.
You're very talented yourself. You're a writer and screenwriter. You have that art in the background, which you did yourself. You've got 2 memoirs.
Yeah, but genius is there's a gap between being really smart and being a genius. There's a gap.
Yeah, there's a huge gap for me. It's about this wide.
So time only will that. But no, there's they go places where you just how do they get there?
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes I think it's fate, hard work, and knowing the right people, and doing the right thing at the right time, and knowing the right people. I think.
Yeah, all that. Yeah,
all that and a bag of chips. With all the charities that are in the world, which one would you choose to advocate for, and why?
Well, I have them on my desk right now. I mean, the Wounded Veterans is a major one, and the Actors Fund is another one. So those are the 2 main ones. And then something with the planet, either wildlife or the oceans. Right. So those are the 4. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go on and on. I have my snail mail is filled every day with at least 10 charities. Oh. All different kinds of charities from everywhere. The Indians and the air and the forests and the planet and the oceans and the children and the schools, and it's just on and on.
Yeah.
And because of the times and because of COVID.
Yeah, it's a hard time.
Because of just, and Trump and all of those people.
I know, right? I take it you're not a supporter.
Just on and on and on. It's human beings, Homo sapiens. I mean, if we just planet Earth, if you just get rid of the Homo sapiens, everything would be fine. We'd have all the elephants, we'd have all the tigers, we'd have all the porpoises, we'd have all the manatees, we'd have all the rhesus monkeys, we'd have everything. If we just get rid of Homo sapiens. That's the problem. There's no other biological species that shits where it eats and sleeps, which is this planet. Right. Homo sapiens is beyond belief. No other animal does to its surroundings and its environment what humans do. And we don't understand that. I mean, what did we breed it out of us? Our DNA doesn't pay attention to that? I don't get it, man. Bats. They shit where they sleep and eat. We're going to have to turn into bats. That's what it is. Live in caves, grab onto the ceiling, and just the droppings just go down on the floor. And that's it. That's what we do.
I would definitely miss the sunlight. I'd miss the sunlight. I wouldn't want to be a bat.
Well, thank you for opening up that rant. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's okay. You know what? Because you're on my show and I have the First Amendment, and I like people to share their views. I'm trying to show how we're similar yet uniquely different, and I like people.
Well,
If everybody was the same on the show wouldn't be as lively or interesting. It's great to hear.
yeah.
You're allowed to have your views, Mr. Hankin.
Oh,
and
okay.
you're
Well,
allowed to
I
share
mean, but
them.
I still that's just something I carry around with me all the time. It's just,
Well, yeah, but you're passionate about it because you see where we're full of errors and where we're not taking care of the planet or each other, and you're allowed to have a desire to be passionate about that. If people wasn't, then if there was more people that had the desire and care to make it the world a better place and make changes so the world will last for our future generations. If more people cared, maybe we'd be changing.
well,
So I agree with you.
the key word you mentioned is if.
Right, exactly.
If there's certain words that should be banned. Well, there I just mentioned one. That if and should. And now I got a new one. Normal. Just get rid of those three words and we'll be fine.
Right. I agree. Yeah, because if is a little word, but it means so much. It's got a broad spectrum on it.
There
It's
is
such a
no more
broad word.
normal, people. Forget it.
Right.
It's over.
Yes, sir, I agree. So, about COVID, how do you feel about what has transpired since COVID-19 and what happened?
Well,
to
I mean,
you?
it's inevitable, and it just proves how stupid we are. I mean, people, Rogan, guy Rogan. I mean, and the no vaxxers. Here's one: the no vaxxers. I was just ranting about it to myself right before we went on the air. The no vaxxers. So there's no vaxxers. The sacredness of the human body. No vaxxers. You can't put any vaccine in my body. My body is sacred. Oh, yeah? Well, what about abortions then with your sacred body?
Mm-hmm. You're awesome.
Asshole. Your body is sacred. Yeah, sure. What about measles? What about measles? What about that? What about when, it's go away. Go away. Get off this planet. Get off this planet. We'd be so much better. So much better. Without Homo sapiens. I'm not saying race, creed, color.
No, you've been very broad.
Religion is another one we could get rid of, but we don't talk about religion. We can't talk about
religion causes more wars than anything.
I mean, now we're now starting to ban books, and don't get me started, man. Please.
I do apologise. I do ask the same question for everybody.
I was trying to be nice.
You are being
that's
nice.
what
You're
satire
honest.
is all about. That's what satire is all about. And that's why I love it. Because you can attack things.
Right, you're allowed to your opinion. You're allowed to your thoughts.
Exactly. But see, my opinion is just my words, and it goes out, and maybe it affects a few people. But there's certain things that people do to the water that is not words. It's like mercury. Mm-hmm. It's like no more coral. It's like no more fish. It's like that's not opinion. That's fact, and it's affecting people.
You're very true, very right. Yeah, we are an ignorant species, especially when the scientific facts are all there and they're still ignored.
Yeah. I don't know, and just mildly, I just like to add that this is just a belief of mine. I don't know what to do about it, but the planet is changing. The Earth is warming, whatever it is.
Yeah, global warming and the
and
ozone
we
layer.
are doing causing. But my belief is right now that it's over. That we don't have enough time to change it. That the fires in California and the snowstorms in the east and the water rising is not going to stop by anything humans can now do.
Right.
We've done it already.
Mm-hmm.
We've done the damage.
Yeah.
And our children and our children's children are going to live in a different world.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and I hope I'm wrong, and I don't think we can do anything about it.
No. It's going to be...
and I don't know what to do about that belief. I mean, I try to find ways to talk myself out of it. I try to see what the new generation is inventing and what science is coming up with. And it's all good and it's all changing, but it's just not enough because we've run out of time.
Yeah, we've done too much damage.
In the 60s, we were hippies and we were talking about this, and now it's too late.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it just shows you when we all went into quarantine, the earth started to, I mean, it wouldn't...
Yeah, it's just,
it started to repair itself. It was the best emissions that it'd been in like decades because no one was driving cars around.
Yeah,
there's a scientific fact right there. The cars cause a lot of damage. the emissions.
Here's a fact, another astounding fact about Homo sapiens. Okay, we get to the moon. And we look back at Earth. And I asked my father this. I thought I was going to stump him, and I didn't. And I asked my father, if you are standing on the moon, and this has been proven because the astronauts have said this, there's only two things that you can see from the moon on Earth that were man-made. There were two things you can see from the moon that were man-made. You know what they are?
No.
The pyramids and the Great Wall of China. The pyramids because they're on a flat desert, and their shadows cast a triangular shadow so huge on this flat surface that on the moon you can see the triangular shadow. It's a square on a flat area. So you can see the shadow of the pyramid. That's a man-made object. Awesome. The other one is the Great Wall of China. Why? Because it's on mountaintops. It's built on mountaintops to keep the enemy out. So the wall is a very smooth serpentine topping to this mountain range. And the serpentine wall is so perfect that it's got to be man-made. And the shadow of the wall is what you see. You see a black line that is perfectly, where there's no other in nature, there's no other perfect, except microbes that have that perfection. Okay. And I said to my father, trying to stump him because I didn't like my father and he didn't like me, frankly. So just a mutual. So he said, so when I said, name two things that, man-made that you can see from the moon. And he said, without even thinking, he said, smog. Now, this was in 1950, and he was right on. You couldn't see it in 1950. But in 1990 and in 2000, you can see it, and you know where it is? It's in the middle of China. Right. You can see smog from the moon. So here's my point about bringing that up. In all our science and all our history, the only two things that you can see from the moon are things that were built 5,000 years ago or more, and smog, which is what we do now. Right. So that's a contribution to our solar system. I don't mean to the shadow, the Great Wall of China, the pyramid, and smog. Let me ask you a question about electric cars. Where do you think the electricity for electric cars comes from?
The sun. The electric. Oh no, because they have to use the
Coal.
electricity, but it all comes from the sun.
Coal. Coal.
Coal?
Coal.
No. Oh.
There's not enough sun energy or whatever you call those things that gather the sun. There's not enough of them to drive the cars and the airplanes.
Yeah.
Coal. Gasoline.
Yeah.
The electricity for electric cars that come right now, today, from coal. Yes, some comes from water energy, dams, and some comes from whatever you call those things you put on your roof for the sun. But that's for houses, solar panels. There's not enough solar panels on Earth to run the cars. And you can do research, but the electricity, the electric cars are for the future. In other words, we're building towards, yes, getting energy from the sun. But what I'm saying is there's not enough time.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not enough time.
If we have enough time, we can build all the things to clean this all up and run the cars. But right now, the electricity for cars comes from coal. So it's all a facade. It's just stupidity rampant on the field of blood. It's just, and dead bodies. Or as my friend would say, you would not know my skull on a field of skulls. I mean, well, I don't know, Gulliver's Travels is Gulliver's Travels, and who's the other one? Don Quixote, Cervantes, and Jonathan Swift. Well, if you people in Ireland are starving, why don't you eat your own children? That's pretty dark, but that's the satire that was going on then. That was the potato eaters. That's where you get the Irish potato.
My family's Irish.
It was the Irish famine, and they wanted money from England. And his satire was, if you're starving, eat your children. Now, he didn't mean, he wasn't against the Irish. He was against the English, who refused to feed
the Irish.
Mm-hmm. So he was really against the English. Mm-hmm. But saying, you potato eaters, why don't you eat your children? That's satire. A lot of people say, no, that's funny. That's not funny. That's cruel. But everything I've been saying is food for satire. In other words, and I don't know how to get through to people because it's kind of winding down, You watch the news and you get very depressed.
Yeah, because I try not to watch the news.
Yeah. So, this interview has taken a turn, which is weird, but it's food for satire. Chaplin's movie, The Great Dictator, he talked about Hitler, right? No, too soon, Charlie, too soon. Come on. So now what I'm talking about to you, Sam, this interview, a lot of things are like black humor, but it's just a warning. A satire is when it gets down to it. Picasso is a great artist. We all think he's a genius and blah, blah, blah. But I've seen Picasso's original cartoon humor. He drew what nowadays would be a political cartoon in a newspaper.
Yeah.
You see that. Well, Picasso drew political cartoons as part of his art. I mean, he wasn't doing it for paper. He was doing it on a canvas, but he drew a political cartoon. And they were, talk about black humor or dark humor.
Yeah.
I mean, they were highly sexual and really angry. I mean, they were just like eunuchs and...
He sounds like a very frustrated man.
Well, I think he was a righteous person. Right. I think he believed that the Germans were coming for him. They didn't touch him.
Right.
He spoke face to face to the Germans, saying what he thought of them, and Hitler said, "No, leave him alone. His art is worthy."
Wasn't Hitler an artist himself, though?
Well, he wanted to be, so he collected all the way. He didn't burn art. He just
Collected
stole
it.
it and stored it in caves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Picasso drew political cartoons, which were I've been in people's houses where they had them framed on walls. They're huge. They're about that. They're about as big as those things. Bigger even. Of Hitler with. I don't even want to go into it. I mean, it's just too dark for.
Yes, it is dark.
But they were political and they were funny and they were angry as hell. I mean, that's the only way. Passion.
Passion. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having passion and desire, and saying how we feel from our soul with a passion, because sometimes that's what drives us. We're allowed to be angry about oppression and someone trying.
I think maybe that's where I got my passion from, is being homeless. It taught me passion.
Right.
You get out to see
and
what people have.
And empathy for humanity, because you struggled, and because you did struggle.
Well, the struggle I didn't mind. That wasn't a struggle. That was, I'm homeless, and therefore this is the parameters of being homeless. Struggle. So it's homeless and struggle are one and the same. So it didn't bother me. I knew I was. But what you do see is what you don't have, and what people do have and don't understand, or people what do have and they waste it, and
they
what
don't appreciate it. Yeah,
you see people not appreciating anything, and so you get a passion. I got to get out of here and tell people and get in their face. So the committee and satire. So blah blah blah. What was that? There's a great cartoonist, Ralph Steadman. I mean, his cartoons are angry as hell, and they're vicious, but they're also kind of funny and satirical. But a lot of people just don't like his work because they're so angry. But hey, man,
or passionate.
Passionate. Well, that's what Der Spiegel, the German. It's a German newspaper, but one of the satirical writers for Der Spiegel, used to hang around at the committee. He was German, but he spoke fluent English. But he was a cartoonist and a satirical writer. And he just, he loved the committee because we were into satire. Mm-hmm. And he was and the angrier we got, the harder he laughed. So, I mean, he was around when the Germans were trying to get into, we're taking over Germany. I mean, he had to flee to France.
Right.
And then he got to get out of France. But, I mean, a certain reverence. I have a certain reverence for satire. It's a Cervantes, Don Quixote.
Oh. So, well, I've really enjoyed listening to you, Larry.
Well, thank you for letting me. This is all rants. I've been ranting for like an hour at least. Thank you very much.
I don't see you ranting. I don't see it ranting. I see it as we've been having a discussion. And a joint discussion where we've both been passionate about certain topics.
Passion, yes, passion. I said passion and desire.
Put that in your book. Passion.
But anyway, thereallarryhankin.com. And they got my films, my little film shorts, and my art. There's 40 of them. You can buy T-shirts. All these are on T-shirts. I don't have them. I put them away. I have my T-shirts. I would put them. So thereallarryhankin.com. Because if you go to larryhankin.com, that's being held for ransom. Something else I can rant about. Yeah, somebody wants me to pay a lot of money to get that. So it's thereallarryhankin.com. So that's one. And the book is the Loophole Dossier. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. I think it's a Kindle book.
Right.
$1, something like that. But it's a satire. It's full of satire. It's great. I wrote it. The Loopholes Dossier. And my new book is going to be called That Guy. And that'll come out. And that'll be my memoir. And that'll come out in January.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're on Facebook
I'm on Facebook, and that's about it. I'm going to have to start getting into the social media stuff because of my website and my books. I got to start advertising. Another weirdness of Homo sapien.
Right. Is there anything that no one has asked you in an interview that you would have liked them to ask you?
Oh, well, no. I mean, anything that anything that they haven't asked me probably should stay that way. I think there's a good reason why they haven't asked me that.
I love that answer.
I'm trying to think of something that, in my life that I want hidden, that I don't want anybody to ask me. That's what you're kind of fishing for. Is there anything
Absolutely.
that shouldn't be revealed?
Or something you wish somebody would have asked you and they didn't, and you went away thinking, why didn't I wish they'd have asked me that.
They should have asked me this. No, really, no, because see, here's how I go into these interviews. I have no agenda. In other words, people call me beforehand and say, is there anything that you want to talk about? And I go, no, because what I want to talk about is not what anybody wants to hear, really. I mean, what I just ranted about, and you said, no, it's a discussion. All that stuff about the earth and Homo sapiens, all that. No, I don't want to talk about that because people generally don't want to talk about that. It's too serious. It gets them out of their comfort zone. Right. And I don't want to get you out of your comfort zone because
you haven't at all. What? You haven't took me out of my comfort zone. I've enjoyed the conversation.
I'm talking about them out there.
Well, yeah, because I don't bring you on here to censor you. I bring you on here to be you.
Well,
yeah,
you're different. I'll just say that you're different. If I go on podcasts, they're all say, "Hey, we'll talk about anything you want," and I'll say, "No, I want to talk about what you want to talk about vis-a-vis me, because I don't know what you're interested in." Now, I'm not talking about you, Sam. I'm talking about other interviewers, and they say, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And I say, "Anything that you want to talk about," because what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the earth and how this is all going to hell in a handbasket and how stupid people are. That's what I want to talk about. Right. But nobody wants to hear that because I'm not talking about you, the interviewer. Yeah. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about 25% of the listeners who are listening. And those 25% of the listeners are going to call you up, the interviewer, and say, "Hey, get that guy off." And then that interviewer is going to listen to the 25% who called because the 75% didn't call, so he didn't hear them. And that's the mathematics of what's going on. 25% is running this country, scared. 25% has had this country running scared. 100% of the Republicans, or 99% of the Republicans, are scared of the 25%. And I mean, that's stupid. I want to yell.
Well,
but that's what I want to talk about. And I don't know how to make that funny yet. But that's what I'm working on. In other words, I'm trying out material.
Well, you've just made me laugh.
Okay, then it's working. But in other words, if you start going into it in other interviews, see, Sam, you're cool. But in other they say, well, let's stay away. And there's others that even say that in the beginning. They say that. Is there anything you want to talk about? And I say, no, let's talk about what you want to talk about. And they say, okay, so we're going to go on, but you can't talk about politics or religion. We don't talk about that. And then other programs say, well, you can't curse. So right away, let's talk about what you want to talk about, because you don't want to hear what I want to talk about. I want to talk about sex, religion, politics, and how stupid Homo sapiens are. So, let's just do it.
So they just want to talk about
good, nice stuff.
They
Nice.
just want to talk about the nice stuff and
Norman Rockwellian stuff.
witches and broomsticks and how everything's nice. But that's not
Yes,
reality.
yes,
The
yes.
reality of life is everything you've mentioned, and that's the reality. And yes, and you can have a show where it's all light, but you know, let's have a difference. Let's have Larry Hankin on speaking his truth, how he feels about facts and what's happening with the world. And let's have another person on there that just wants to talk about themselves and what they're doing and keeping it light. Let's have a variety. But I have no censorship on my show because I would never censor a person to their thoughts. What is the point of asking them to come on your show to speak about them? Because this show is about you. It's not about me. So I would never disrespect someone and ask them to censor what they're saying. I just wouldn't, unless they're attacking. If they were attacking a single person or being racist, I wouldn't like that, because I think we're all human and we're all the same, you know, yet uniquely different. If someone was being downright racist on here against any particular culture, then I would slam it down, because I wouldn't tolerate such. But be yourself and speak your passion and speak from your soul, and amen to that.
Well, yeah. In other words, if somebody was actually if I was being
and you haven't been
stupid, then you would shut me down. If I was racist, if I was a white supremacist,
exactly, yes.
Okay, then you would say okay. But a lot of people don't even want that possibility. Now, again. I understand the facts. The facts are 75%, approximately, are really cool people. It's 25% are the ones running the show in America. As far as the world goes, I would say 16% of the planet Earth is fucked, is stupid. And I say 16% because I'm only counting the dictators, right, the autocrats and the rulers and the runners of countries. I mean, you know, the people in France are pretty cool. The people in Afghanistan are pretty cool. The people in Hungary are pretty cool. Right. It's the leaders are just weird. I mean, and wrong. Well, that's what we had, and you need 4.
Well, if 2 or 3, 2, maybe 2.
I mean,
1 headshot.
Okay, there you go. That is the first question nobody has ever asked me. So there it is. That's the question I don't want asked. Can you send me photographs? That's the question.
Well, thank you, and Larry Hankin, thank you for coming on Chatbox with Sam. I've really enjoyed your discussion with me today.
Well, I've enjoyed it too.